Welcome to Nomadic Wednesday. Hold on just a second. I'm trying a new setup today because I've been watching some of my replays and the camera on the MacBook has not been up to par. So I'm working with a new setup. I'd like to welcome everyone here. Let me pull this up. Welcome to Nomadic Wednesday. I don't have any kind of crazy slideshow today. We're just going to kind of just do a celebration. So I'm happy to have everyone here who's in chat already. I see a few familiar places. Thank you, Boondock Charlie, for being here. I believe I've said hi to everyone else. We're going to jump right into this. So today I have a very special guest with me, and his channel is it's a newer channel, just like a lot of people I know. So it's exciting to see how a new channel, how he's established his community, how he's still building his community, how he puts out content. And his content, I think, is going to provide a lot of value, or at least that's my hope today. So definitely, if you have some questions, kind of get those as we go and put those into chat, and make sure you use the @ and my username so that way I can see it. Moderators, thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. And I'm going to check really quick down here in the basement and see, hey, Vanlife with Gina, thank you for being here. And if you're ready to come up, GreyMan, give me a thumbs up down there. All right, great. He said he's ready.
What's up, Marshall?
Hey, welcome, GreyMan. Or should I just call you Gray?
Most people call me Gray.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for being here today. I know you're a busy man. I was looking at some of your shows.
It's been a really bad day. Not a bad day, a very intriguing and complicated day. Like I literally, if you see me pop in your green room like 2-3 minutes ago, because I just walked through the door.
Oh, wow. Yeah, honestly, I was preparing for this, so I wasn't I'm switching to the iPhone camera, and so I was kind of focused on that. I didn't even notice. So, well, hopefully it's easing out there for you, and you know.
I learned a good lesson today. Put it that way. I learned a good lesson, a very, very important lesson today that I will never ever forget.
Do you care to share that lesson with the audience that's watching right now?
Sure, why not? So, I was out doing my video today. Recording my video. I had a couple hiccups in regards to doing the video. So I had to, restructure what I was doing. And then I ended up doing a phenomenal video with fire and gators and all kinds of stuff like that involved into it. And I was so excited. I was rushing home, put all my gear back in the vehicle, left my phone on top of the vehicle.
Oh.
Luckily, I am who I am. And I backtracked and found the destroyed in pieces in the middle of a highway phone.
Wow.
And lost all my footage, lost all my contacts, lost memories, photos. So here's the lesson I would suggest anybody who's watching that would care to learn is back up everything to outside of your phone. If you have a USB drive or something like that, back it up, because I don't even have my wife's phone number right now. I have no idea what her phone number is.
That's so crazy, because I remember like growing up in the 80s and 90s, like we always had phone numbers that we remembered. And now, like a lot of us, just like you said, we don't remember the numbers because we have that device and it's so handy.
Yeah. It's your emails, your phone numbers, the way you pay bills, everything is run through that little monster. I did get me a great brand new monster phone with insurance on it and a huge protector. I went all out because I'm never letting that happen again. And I have ways to backing up. But yeah, I learned a hard lesson today, folks. And like I said, I just literally walked through the door coming from the store. I put up a public service announcement video up for folks so they knew what happened to me or what was going on, because I didn't post my normal video, and then went straight to the store to try to resolve the issue.
Yeah, that's never fun, and I hate to hear about that, but definitely thanks for sharing. And speaking of, you brought up an interesting point there. Do you think it's better to, in your opinion, do you think it's better to back up to like a physical hard device, or I know some people rely on the cloud alone? Like what can you say about that?
I had spoke about that, and here's my opinion. is backup to okay, a lot of people use the cloud, but what concerns me about the cloud is hackers and other people can gain access to that platform. So doing a hard backup to, let's say, I'm going to start backing up to a USB drive and then encrypting that drive, once a month and putting it away in my safe. And then every month I'm going to back up my phone data onto that USB drive. They're very cheap. Encryption is really easy this day and age, or just password protected, or do something that's it's there, not online, because anything online can be hacked. I mean, just like your Gmail or your emails, YouTube accounts, Instagram accounts, all those things can be hacked, and you can lose lots of information.
I agree with you. I think that's great advice because, the cloud, the whole cloud storage thing is a newer technology. Granted, so is a physical device, but like you said, it's easier to hack a cloud service than it is to hack your physical device, because a lot of times your device isn't plugged in. So definitely great points there. So if you're just now joining us, welcome to Mellow Nomadic Adventures. Today we are celebrating 500 subscribers, and we have an interview from GreyMan Prepping. And we're going to get to know him, a little bit more about his channel, how prepping relates to the nomadic experience and the van life experience, and how you can be prepared. And, there's a lot that can go into it, and we're going to dive deeper. So definitely, if you have questions, put them in the chat. And like I said, use the @ at me. I'm going to go ahead. I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Like I emailed you, Gray, we may not make it to all of these, and that's okay. There's some certain ones I do want to get to first, though. For example, I've noticed just through being a subscriber to Vanlife with Gina, and that's actually where I learned about your channel, was from her channel.
Love Gina.
She is an amazing community builder and supporter of my channel. So love her and what she's doing. One thing I've noticed is there's a lot of prepping channels. Like that wasn't on my radar. Why do you think there's been an influx, or maybe it's been there and I'm just new to it, but why do you think there's a popularity, so to speak, in prepping now?
Well, there's always been okay. So I call them closet preppers, people that prep that don't know that they're preppers. But I think over the last year, roughly in the last year, with what's going on, I don't like to mention it too much, but everybody knows what's going on in society and what we're dealing with over the past year. And then just as recent as Texas, people are realizing, that how important prepping is. It's not a tinfoil hat kind of idea. As I like to call it, is insurance. It's like you have a car insurance, for an accident or something like that. You can't buy insurance after you get into the accident. So prepping to me is insurance for survival in a grid down situation or a storm. I mean, prepping can be for anything, financially, food. But like, let's say you're in a storm, let's say a hurricane or tornado, floods, and you have to, it's just best to have some sort of supplies for you and your family, or if you're an individual, however you want to look at it. But I think it's just pertinent to folks to have something as a backup. You can't always depend that grocery store is going to be there, that gas station is going to be there, and stuff like that.
Okay. I think you hit the nail on the head, like I expected you to. So welcome. I'm just going to do a few welcomes here in the beginning, because we have people constantly joining us. So 20 in the house. If you're just joining us, it's a 500 subscriber special. I want to say a quick hello to Robert Mack in Asia. Thank you, my friend, for being here. And also Fairy Dest, Bernie. Thank you for being here. Also Shebna from Canada. I appreciate you being here. Just exploring every path. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you all stopping in. We're going to get on to the next question, which, so we've talked about why there's an interest. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm hoping that the audience out there can see the value that we're bringing today. I want to know, though, from someone who maybe, like you said, is a closet prepper, or maybe a closet prepper versus someone brand new who doesn't even know what prepping, what would be the first item that you would say, if you really want to get into prepping, start with this item?
Sorry about that. I don't, my phone, I'm going to throw it in the drawer because I don't know how to turn it off yet.
It's okay.
The first item that I would say is food. food is very important to survival. Food and water, basically. It's just and so some people say, when it comes to water, let's say you're in a van life and you can't store abundance amount of water in a van, depending on the size or RV or whatever that you have. But food and water is like my two most important things when it comes to certain stuff, because you need those to survive. You know what I mean? I think water's 3 days, and I think food is 3 weeks, if I recall correctly. Because those are the things that are going to disappear first, and most situations. Let's say like when there's a hurricane down here in Florida, everybody runs to the store and the water is wiped out. You know what I mean? So, and if you can't carry like a lot of water on you, water filtration. So we call it the 5 C's. There's more into it, but there's certain things, like food, water, shelter, means of making fire, means of protection. There's certain ways that we look at stuff.
Well, that's great. But food and water are like the top.
Yeah, it's a good place to start, because most folks usually only have 3 or 4 days in their pantry of food. It may look like a lot, but if you break it down per meal and stuff like that, most folks don't have a lot.
That's true. So that is a good point for sure, because you definitely need both of those if you're going to do any other surviving after that. So we're going to go on, and I'm going to kind of jump into some other questions here. This is a kind of a question that I was really curious about. Like, as a prepper, is there a certain style inspiration or type of clothing? Are there things you look for, the waterproof factor, or is there other types, certain colors, or anything style-wise, comfortability, as far as clothing goes for prepping and survival?
So it's a multifaceted question. And what I mean by that is it depends on the environment that you're in. If you live in the desert, if you live in the mountains, where it's cold, humid environments, swampy, you kind of have to gear your clothing towards those environments, even with the color. Are you trying to blend in? Are you trying to stand out? Because some people are trying to, evade, or, they're trying to not be noticed. And other folks that are hiking might want to be noticed in case something happens. I like to use certain things that are breathable, things that can easily dry, something with lots of pockets, gear like that. And a lot of people think preppers are the guys that they're wearing all camo and all that stuff like that. There's ways to get around having to wear camo and stuff like that, or, your standard cargo pants. They have jeans. They have a lot of things out there that surprisingly that would help you blend in regards to your attire. If you're trying to be a prepper, trying to, keep all your gear on me. Like, I have a bunch of stuff on me right now, like my flashlights, my fire starters, and odds and ends and gadgets, but it's not noticeable. You don't want to stand out in a crowd unless you're really looking for that. So that's how it comes to, like, if you're depending on the temperature, if you're in a cold environment, then of course you want to dress in layers, then you want to also look at your footwear, the kind of footwear are you going to be doing a lot of walking? Are you going to be, the type of socks that you wear, wool socks, and there's I can do a whole video about socks, but a lot of that's going to have to do with where you're at. So.
All right. That's, I really didn't even think about that when I was putting together this question. That's so true though. Because if you're in the desert, you're gonna have different types than if you're in a cold climate. Mm-hmm. Now, since we're on the kind of topic of prepping or prepping clothing, is there like a certain brand of prepping clothing that, someone that makes both tops and bottoms, for lack of a better way to say it, you know what I mean?
There's a few manufacturers out there, and a lot of people are familiar, let's say, with like 511 Tactical. That's like a main brand that people can look into. But even at like if people are familiar with Bass Pros, I don't know whether Bass Pros might be all over the U.S. They have some good brands in there as well. There's Under Armour. There's a lot of different brands out there, but to kind of get you started, because 511 Tactical is great stuff, but can be pricey. So what I would do is I would look at what 511 has to offer and then look at more affordable options. Now, I don't mean go super cheap, because you have to look at the stitching in regards to the fabric that you're using. Because let's say if you're hiking and you're trying to reach over, you're trying to climb over something and it rips, that'd be a no-go. You know what I mean? The type of zippers, if you prefer a zipper or buttons, so like I said, you have to look at some of those things, dig into the reviews. A lot of folks have put a lot of, I dig into reviews of hikers mainly because hikers are out there doing all kinds of stuff. And I look at the type of gear and footwear and stuff that they use, and the brands that they use.
That's a good tip right there, because that, there's a lot of similarities, I think, between what you're doing and people who are into adventure, people that are just doing the nomadic life to travel. I definitely wrote down all of those brands, and I'm going to rewatch this, and definitely loving to talk to you directly and bring you to this audience that I have. So thank you again for being here, Grey.
Anytime.
This is kind of a question. Now, I went back and I watched your interview with the Angry Prepper.
Jason the Angry Prepper?
Yeah. I noticed some things he had a lot of things. You all had a lot to talk about. So I wanted to kind of ask some questions that we didn't get answers to. For example, do you remember what the first item, your first prepper item was that you can remember? What?
Good question, because it's been a long time, man, and I'm old. Let me see, because I started prepping back in, I think it was 04, 05, and I'm trying to think of what I got, because I'm thinking of what I needed at that time, and I got a lot of more emergency preparedness stuff, like survival blankets, fire starters and stuff like that. Like I didn't get like what I have now with the ferro rod. I got more of like the waterproof matches, because what got me into prepping was the hurricanes. And so I thought of what I need in that kind of situation, candles, and then food and water and but supplies, more like, kind of stuff like that related to more of a hurricane preparedness aspect of things. But I think, like I said, it was pretty much probably one of my, because it was survival blankets are relatively cheap, you know what I mean? And I had kids at the time, very small children, so I wanted to make sure that in case the windows got broke, they were warm.
That's awesome. That's an awesome thing to have on hand for sure, especially during hurricanes. Now, you were telling me you've been through 3 of these, I think. Is that
I went through 3 that year alone.
Oh wow!
They were within weeks of each other. That's why it was. That's what woke me up. They were just back to back. We were getting hit left and right. You recover from one, you start doing some stuff, and then boom, the next one would roll through. It was a nasty year.
Wow.
But in general, in hurricanes, I've probably been through at least a dozen.
Wow, that's a lot. You still love Florida.
Yeah, there's a lot of preppers in Florida. I mean, I'd rather deal with a hurricane, and nothing against you guys out in California, but earthquakes kind of scare me, because I'm like, the ground starts to shake. What do you do, in a major earthquake event? At least with hurricanes, we have a window of preparedness before it happens.
That's true. Real quick, I have a question from the chat I'm going to throw to you. Barefoot InAK, she's up in Alaska. Dana, she wants to know what would be your best piece of advice for a nomad, a single woman wanting to prep but be nomadic at the same time?
Like advice, huh? Because if you're a woman and you're nomadic, so that means you're by yourself, you can use a means of protection for either for protecting yourself, but also for hunting. So to me, that would be important. If you've watched any survival movies, and yes, it's a movie, but you can get information from these movies, is women are always attacked in every single movie, especially if you're alone. So a means of protection would be very important to me. Plus, because you can use, like I said, you can use it for hunting. So it's a dual purpose thing, to hunt and to protect yourself. So that would probably be my initial advice in regards to the being out there.
That was a great question, Dana. Thank you for asking that. leads me to another question that I had, which is what types of tools or things can we carry with us in the nomad life, in the van life, and just the RV life to help protect ourselves in different situations? And like you said, also hunt with maybe a dual purpose type of tool.
You know, because I'm not sure what you guys have access to. I've watched Gina, and you know, she has like the little stoves, and you guys have propanes and stuff like that. But I mean, I guess without that, for means of protection, like I said, or something that you could carry on you is, you know, of course, like, you know, some sort of a blade or a knife or something like that. Because like I said, that's dual purpose. Because you can use the right blade, you can use for stuff like for protection. You can use it for hunting. You can use it for batoning wood. You can use it for feathering, for fire starting material. So a knife can become in very handy to cut paracord. Lots of uses for a blade. And some of the folks that are maybe want to use, let's say, something to protect themselves, but not as, let's say, life-threatening as a blade, bear spray, wasp spray, you know, some sort of chemical agent like that would also be something nice. And your guys' instance, you know, I think tools are probably very important because you guys are in a vehicle. So having certain types of tools, something that you get like a multi-tool, I think would be something nice for you guys to have that you can do has multiple facets, you know, let's say a can opener, a screwdriver, you know, a little saw, you know, something that has more versatile than like that. 'Cause I know you guys don't want to carry a bunch of stuff with you, but I think like a multi-tool, standalone full tang blade, which is, you know, the blade is not like I have to go deeper into it, but you have your little blades, and then you have like a full tang, which is the spine of the blade goes from the tip to the end, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of those.
And I would, and some preppers don't, but some preppers do carry a ferro rod. I do with me. It's just because you just never know if you get saturated with water, your lighter may not work, matches may not work. So I always carry a ferro rod with me as well.
That's great. Great news. Great news. That was so lame. I'm sorry, brother. I'm trying to read a question, but listen to your answer.
Oh, it can be complicated. It can be complicated.
You do a great job managing the chat and what your topics are and what you're there to talk about, I think, because that can be a challenge.
Yes, it can.
Now, before we go any further, I just kind of realized I didn't even ask you to talk about your channel yet. So I'm so sorry about that. If you're just joining us, welcome. This is the 500 subscriber special interview on Mellow Nomadic Adventures. Today we have GreyMan Prepping. He is an emergency preparedness, I would say, expert, but there's other things that he is very knowledgeable about. As far as like even eating what plants that you can eat and can't eat and how to survive during emergency situations. So I'm going to turn it over to Grey and just tell us, the audience, a little bit more about your channel, better than I could.
Well, I designed my channel with a thought in mind. I kind of wanted to hit several topics, and I wanted to organize it in a fashion that would make sense. Because like I said, if I could do it all over again, maybe I may have come up with maybe GreyMan preparedness versus prepping, because some people hear the word prepping and they think stuff, you know, they think doomsday prepper, they think tinfoil hat kind of stuff like that. But most of us folks are very sane. We're just always concerned or worried about little situations, and that could turn into larger situations. So what I did with mine, and unfortunately, there's a lot of, you'll see prepper channels out there that are, you know, they're wearing full camo and they got a tack vest on and all that stuff like that. And they can be very off-putting, if that makes any sense. And don't get me wrong, I have that stuff. I just don't, it's just no need for me to be on camera with it. So I have a medical background. I was in the military. I was as a medic. So I incorporated doing Medical Mondays on my channel. Sunday is where I kind of talk about stuff in the news, because some of the stuff in the news does pertain to prepping, you know, and it can affect folks in general. And like I just recently heard something about the federal government talking about the van and RV life, about calling it Papa Prepper was talking about it today, and he said that they're trying to pass legislation or laws that you can't live in a van. It's for recreational purposes only, not to live in. And I was like, wow, that's kind of they're even attacking tiny homes. So stuff in the news can relate to our channels. Tuesdays I do my interviews. I like to interview small channels, sometimes large channels, to get them exposure because I started off small, and I like helping folks because folks helped me. On Wednesdays I dive into stuff that has to do with gear. Types of gear that I use, types of gears that I may recommend. Sometimes I do a versus kind of thing, like this versus that. What's the better option? What's the cheaper option? What might work for certain folks? And then Thursdays, currently, I'm doing an open forum. Let's say people from your chat want to come over and they want to jump on with me. I drop the link after I make a little, talk about a few things, and they can just jump on, and they want to talk about their channel. They want to talk about they had a bad day. It's not topic specific. So it's kind of, like I said, I'm still growing as well and learning things. I have put stuff to my subscribers, like what is it called? Like a poll, if anything that they wanted me to change. And so far they seem to like that platform and the way my schedule is set. So far so good. So we'll see where it goes. You never know. I take Fridays and Saturdays off to spend with family. I do have, a full-time job and a part-time job and YouTube, so you can consume lots of time. But I enjoy folks like yourself and folks in chat. I love the subscribers. They're very informative, and they're very good folks.
That's awesome. Well, I hope that some of you all in chat will go check out Grey's channel and check out some of his videos. I feel like there's a few topics that he makes videos about, and you just heard him talk about his live shows. So there's a lot of content there for you to dive into. If you're like me, you're always looking for other live shows to go and watch sometimes when there's not a live going on. So I hope you all go check it out.
I can throw something in there for a lot of folks that do the van life and RVing. Maybe if you look at it this way, let's say you're traveling, you're going from one location to the next, and it's cold outside, you're traveling, and your vehicle does break down. And let's say you may not have the tools to fix it. So you might have to stay in that vehicle for a certain amount of time, depending on where it is. Maybe it's days for someone comes by, hopefully not. Hopefully it's on a heavily traveled, environment. But I know some folks like to be out in the wilderness in some of those more rural areas. So maybe that's how prepping can be involved in there, is prepping your van or your RV or whatever that you have, things that you could survive, several days if you were stuck somewhere before you get help.
That's a good point right there, for sure. So, having some emergency equipment with you is not a bad idea. Real quick, I have a question from Charlie from the chat. He is asking, in a SHTF situation, which if you don't know what that is when stuff hits the fan. Is it more advantageous to be nomadic or stationary?
Very good question. So it depends. There's always a what if kind of thing like that. So if you're in a solid location, a secure location, then it's good to be stationary, at least until things blow over. Because some people would consider someone who is nomadic or just running around more of a refugee from a location. Let's say you're in a home and then you have to leave your home, and you're kind of considered a refugee. So you're more susceptible to running into marauders or folks that might do harm to you. And it's hard to let's say carry all your gear with you. Let's say if you're running around with a backpack, it's hard to carry a lot of stuff that you could have in a home or a stationary position. Usually people who have their home, or let's say an RV or whatever that you're in, you have your livelihood in there. You have your food, you have all your comforts, you have everything there that you need to survive most of the time. So being out and about, I think it would be more riskier, because we call it bugging in and bugging out, and over on our side of things. And most folks will tell you it's better to bug in, but it's also good to have a plan in case you do have to bug out. So that's why we call bobs or bug out bags.
That's awesome that you ended on that, because I have a question about what's a bug out bag.
So there's a lot of different forms when it comes to bug out bags. I have what they call a get home bag in my vehicle, and I have a bug out bag. And I'll kind of give you an idea between the two. My get home bag is something that I carry in my vehicle at all times. I carry it everywhere I go. It has at least a minimum of 72 hours of survival gear and some food and water and stuff like that. No matter, because let's say if I'm coming from work and something happens, something dramatic happens, and I can't get home, I have to huff it back. So I have gear that I can take with me if I have to leave my vehicle to survive for at least 3 days, depending on how far I am from my home. Now, a bug out bag, on the other hand, is something that if you were going to leave your home, almost like in a permanent situation, things have gone really south and you have to leave and you're going to have to survive like out in the wilderness. And this is why I say it's worst case scenario, because most folks ask yourself, could you live out in the woods? Could you hunt? Do you know how to hunt? Do you know how to fish? Do you know how to process meats? Do you know how to build a shelter? These are questions that that you should ask yourselves. And if you don't, maybe you should learn some of these things because you never know how valuable it can be. So a bug out bag is something that's going to be more robust with a lot more gear in there for long-term survival, to kind of give you an idea with that. You know what I mean? And the thing is a lot of people, when they first get a bug out bag, they stick so much stuff inside of it, they can't even barely carry it. It's a weight issue. Because they're so concerned of what they may need. And that's why there's some great prepping channels out there that will kind of like assist with that to kind of give you a better idea of some of the things that you should or shouldn't put in the bag. I probably should eventually do a video or breakdown of it. The video that I lost today was actually a breakdown of my get home bag that I take out with me on hikes. But like I said, unfortunately, that is lost footage now. And then here's the thing is if you decide to create a bug out bag, you just can't buy a bunch of gear and throw it in there and just save it there for worst case scenarios. You should learn how to use what's inside there, practice with it. And then also you want to train if you're going to train. What I mean by training is put your bug out bag on. And let's say you live in a van or you live in a RV or something like that. When you can, go on the trail, but put that bag on so you can kind of get used to the weight. So you can kind of feel what it's like if you had to leave your vehicle or your home behind, and how far can you walk with that weight? Get your body accustomed to it.
It's a great point because I know there are a lot of people out there who probably do just buy the stuff, fill the bag up, and sit it in the closet, or somewhere where it's not readily. I don't know. I feel like if it's in my eyesight, I'm going to be more apt to use it.
Yeah, you don't want to put it up in an attic somewhere because if you need to go, most folks usually have less than a few minutes when something really, really bad happens. So somewhere readily accessible, like you said, maybe on the hall closet, but on the way out, you know what I mean. And you guys with the RV and the Vanlife crew, maybe if you guys have like a spot in your van that you could just pack like something like that, and then you can keep it hidden there, in case, I always worry about you guys because I always wondered how folks, if you leave your vehicle and that's everything you have in your possessions is in that vehicle, if something happens to that vehicle, if someone tries to break into that vehicle or approach it in a bad manner, I was curious how you guys deal with the security aspect of that.
Yeah. So I'm still newer to the van life stuff, but I know from a lot of the research that I've done, because I just do a ton of research. I watch a lot of videos, but there's a lot of security measures you can take. I've seen some vans go as far as adding an additional lock to prevent the sliding doors from opening. I've seen them chain the doors together. I've seen them have safes inside that are lockable. So that's something that it's on my list of I want to learn more about that because I'm looking for the best ways to do that. Really fast, we just went past the 30-minute mark. I just want to throw a couple of hellos out there to the people in the chat just to make sure that you all know I haven't forgotten about you. Appreciate all of you all being here today. This is our 500 subscriber episode with GreyMan Prepping. I'd like to welcome Amphibious North to the chat. Thanks for being here. Raz Nick's vlog. It's a new friend. Thank you for coming over. I appreciate you. Hello to Chris Scott And we have Tim from Mobang for Your Bucks. I love that name. Also, Daryl from Van City Adventure, our Canadian buddy, is in the house, and Tim from Time for Exploring. Also, we have Erica with Chasing America in the house. So I definitely appreciate all of you all being here. Fairy Dust, real quick, I want to read her comment. She said, I learned to carry small bills. You don't want to have just 20s. If you need to buy a bottle of water and no change out there, you will have no choice but to pay $20 for that bottle.
No, that's it's good to always have cash. And like I said, there's a lot of things I can get into, because when you, and I'm just going to touch on this real quick.
Sure.
When you have money in the bank, let's say, your debit card, technically, yes, you have money in the bank, but it's not real money, if that makes sense. They call it fiat currency. So having hard money in your hand is always the best bet. And same thing for you guys out there that may collect, let's say, silver or gold or anything like that, is you don't want to just buy, a huge 1 pound bar of silver. You know what I mean? You want to buy the small, the little 10th ounce, because like you said, you may want to buy something small or trade for something small. So it kind of goes to the money or physical money, and also, towards precious metals. It kind of runs that gambit of what she said. So that makes sense.
Awesome. And thank you. I believe that was Fairy Dust. Thank you, Fairy Dust, Bernie, for your comment there. Now I want to do a real quick hello to Dan N. And so thank you all, everyone in chat, for being here. If you can share this out, please share this out to whichever network you can. And do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. So it will help this video reach more people and help more people. So now, Gray, I'd like to kind of move into more how the prepping and your channel can relate to my audience. I like to think of it more as hopefully one day our audience, and we can all be a part of the same kind of family, if that makes sense. But until then, I think this is a step in the direction, and I'd like to talk about something that might not be talked about a whole lot, and that's when you're going into van life, how important is it to have the mental preparedness? So even if you're not totally 100% in van life, but let's say an earthquake or a hurricane in your case, or something, a tornado, something happened, how important is it to have that mental preparedness in those types of emergency situations? If something happens crazy with the government, if we have a natural disaster, or if we need to flee where we're at, how important is mental preparedness, and what advice do you have to someone starting out on that road?
I literally, I did a video about this because I feel mental preparedness is very important, in all regards, because you have to ready yourself for the worst case scenario, and traumatic events. And some folks have been through traumatic events. But I'm thinking of, like, from a medical perspective, for me, we see trauma, in the military, you see something really, really bad. And some folks freak out. Even people who have the training freak out. And the key is trying to breathe. I call it combat CBT, combat breathing technique. There's a lot of things you can do, because you need to keep your adrenaline down. You need to keep calm, because here's the biggest issue is when your adrenaline's pumping, and you're getting you're freaking out, you make the worst decisions, because you're not really paying attention. You're not focusing on that. And those decisions can lead to harm, or something like that, where you may make a mistake. So it's always best to try to, if something happens, is to take a second, just try to take a second, even though seconds are just kind of ticking away, is to take a second and just ponder before you move forward. So you always, when it comes to the brain, because the brain plays tricks on you, you got to defeat that fear factor. And I know it's hard for some of us deal with it in different ways. But it's about breathing. And I also use something called grounding techniques. And you guys, you can find this stuff on the internet if you want. But grounding techniques is to, some people, that when everything is in chaos, you ground yourself to what you're doing, okay, I'm here, I'm safe, or whatever the case may be, to kind of refocus before you do something else, if that makes sense. But mental preparedness is huge, Marshall, because a lot of folks aren't going to be ready. The loss of a loved one, the loss of a vehicle, loss of a phone. But the phone you can live without. You know what I mean? I just threw it in there because of what I'm going through and
Right.
my separation anxiety with all my contacts and information that I lost. But think about that. Let's say you have a pet. I think Gina has cats and stuff like that. Is just imagine, if something bad was to happen, God forbid, how to deal with that. You know what I mean? Because if they get injured and you have to remain calm, if you can't get them to a vet, what can you do to help save the life of that cat or that dog or whatever, you know what I mean? Or another person. So remaining calm is super important. And so I think training yourself to remain calm would be very helpful.
That's awesome. And I hope that some of you out there research more about what he just said in answer to that question, because I agree that's a huge part of living the nomadic life. There's a lot of solo nomads out there. So, even if you're not in an exact stuff hitting the fan situation, it's still a good thing to be mentally prepared for traveling alone, how to encounter other people.
I can add something to that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many folks out there have watched the series called Alone on the Discovery Channel. Does that sound familiar to you, Marshall?
Yes.
Okay. Most of the time they fail, not because of their survival skills, is because they get mentally like in their head, they go crazy because they're missing their family. They're missing their comfort of being around a warm fire, in their home. They're missing food. They're missing a lot of stuff like that. So that the head starts playing games on with them. So being alone in itself can play tricks on you. And these folks, they have $1 million on the line, and their brain tricks them into thinking of giving up.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the show. I've not watched or kept up with it, but I know like the gist of it. I would imagine also just the hunger too. You're probably starving out there, trying to survive in the middle of nowhere. I would imagine all of that, and being alone coupled together, it's hard, and it takes some being mentally strong in there.
A lot of humans are geared towards that social interaction. Some folks can handle being alone better than others, but sometimes you want to hear something other than your own voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Grey, I wanted to ask you, have you ever lived in a van or an RV?
I had my father actually had, but I've never lived in a van or an RV. Funny that you asked that. My wife, she's been talking about it because down the road, I guess as we get closer in age, as a retirement thing, we've thought about, investing into an RV. And this is probably a decade or so down the road because she likes to travel. She wants to see stuff all over the US. And at that point we would be RVers. So who knows, maybe down the road, if a decade or so from now, you might see, I might change my name from GreyMan Prepping to GreyMan RVing.
Well, only time will tell on that, and I'll keep my eye out. Is there?
I was going to say, but I do love the things that you guys have done. I've watched a lot of your guys' stuff, and what you guys have done to these vehicles are super impressive, to be honest with you.
That's awesome. So, everyone in chat, Grey is super knowledgeable. He loves the van community. We're trying to expose his prepping channel. Prepping goes a lot in. It's a lot related to homesteading also. There's a lot of homestead channels out there that I'm subscribed to. So if anybody in the chat, and really fast, I want to say hello to Karen with Prairie Life, Water Girl. Thank you for being here. Also, the Morris family, DJ, thank you for being here from Canada. I appreciate you all showing up. Now, Grey, we talked a little bit already kind of about staying stationary versus moving around in some of those situations. Now, let's say that we did have to move around. Is there a such thing as a good bug out vehicle?
Technically, yeah. and you can look at it. I'm looking at this from a military standpoint because the original Hummer was an extremely durable vehicle, not very gas friendly, but you have to look at the terrain that you might have to get through. Something that's 4x4, you know what I mean? If you get stuck, a 4x4 can be very handy. And learning how to use it. Some people buy a 4x4 vehicle and don't know how to actually use a 4x4 vehicle. I've seen that, for instance. But when putting together a vehicle like that, you have to just think of like scenarios. You know, they have tires that are called run flats or something like that in case they get punctured. You know, if you really want to take it out there, you know, people have done stuff like, you know, armoring their vehicles, you know, bulletproofing their windows. I mean, and that's to the way end of things. But just having winches and lights and things like that, people have upgraded their vehicles. So if you're going to get a vehicle that you want to do that with, and some of you guys probably have some pretty robust vehicles to carry all that weight around. But you know, anything that's usually 4x4. I drive a Jeep myself. Most people are probably familiar with Jeeps. They're kind of made to be rugged or whatnot, but I can do some upgrades to it to make it even better. You know, say like a push bar or stuff like that. So, yeah, of course, racks. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those Hummers. My friend, he's an engineer, and after high school, we kind of went our separate ways, and he moved to another state. But he called me. We still keep in touch to this day, even though that was decades ago. High school was, but he found these Hummers, these government Hummers, on this auction site, and he bought like 3 of them. And the third one, he was taking the parts off and rebuilding the 2 just for fun, just to drive around on his property. But I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I wanted to ask you, GreyMan or Grey, if you weren't doing a prepping channel, is there another type of channel that you think you would do?
That's a pretty good question. Because so I don't know if it relates to prepping or not, but I would love to dig into just kind of camping and hiking. There's some interesting channels that I've watched because I've always wanted to see if I could. I wish I would have done it when I was younger, but hike the Appalachian Trail, you know, where you start in Georgia and you end up, I think it goes as far as Maine. I just think it'd be a life goal or an adventure, and it would take roughly a year on average to finish that hike, of course. And I would love to have dedicated a channel to, you know, pitfalls and positives and things and gear and stuff that you would use for something like that. So it kind of differs from prepping because it's more in the hiking community, but I think, like you said, it all kind of folds into each other at some form or another.
That's awesome. That would be cool if you did do that channel. I would subscribe. I've seen a girl, she did a solo hike on the Appalachian Trail. Of course, it's in segments, but it's just cool to watch. Yeah,
for sure. It's very intriguing. And they learn a lot of stuff on the way because it's not as easy as folks think.
Yeah, and an interesting thing is there's a transformation usually from when they began their hike to when they end. Every single person that I've seen finish it, in the video at least, it seems like they've come out different on the other side, and not in a bad way, but I think that's really interesting.
Definitely find yourself if you want to look for that inner you.
Exactly. And really fast, I want to say hello to Thrifty Angela. Thank you for being here. I love the creations you do. And Steve with Desert Adventures in Arizona, thank you for being here, my friend. And also Raymond with Paperback Nomad. And another one, Tata Vlogs, thank you for being here. Grey, is there a piece of gear or a piece of clothing or some kind of emergency item, or since you're coming from a lot of medical background, is there something that has not been invented yet, where basically, is there a hole where you see a need for something? Like, do you have an idea for something that, oh, it'd be great if they made this or that?
I'm pretty sure there is, and there's lots, but there's one thing that's coming. It's just popping in my head because someone told me it was very intuitive, something I did. And this might be this might sound Greek to you folks if you've never seen it before, but a lot of people who use fire starting tinder, they use cotton balls and Vaseline. It's just it's a prepper necessity in starting fires. But I took that idea and I put it into a capsule, like a plastic capsule, and then sealed it to make it kind of a fire starting capsule. And I thought that was a really neat idea. I got a lot of good feedback from it. And this was early on in my YouTube channel. So it probably, maybe I could redo it another time and bring it back to light. But because it makes it waterproof at that point. And the way the capsule worked is that you would, once you want to use that for tinder, once you get your firewood together, you would slice a piece in the top, pull out some of that cotton, use your ferro rod to start the fire, and it lasts a lot longer. And some folks may say, well, isn't the plastic toxic? I get those questions a lot. Yes, plastic is toxic, but in a survival situation and you need heat to heat your food up, to purify water and to stay warm, that toxicity is not going to be a big deal because it's going to burn off. You're just using that as a keynote to start the fire.
It's a great idea. That would be cool too, because I've seen videos where they do the cotton ball with the Vaseline and like some type of like tin. I'm like, I was just thinking that was really messy. Having a capsule like that, besides the waterproof factor, can make it really neat too.
Yeah, you definitely keep your hands a little cleaner. It's a messy thing creating those things.
I've not made one yet, but I do want to experiment, and I've actually have plans to do that soon. Experiment with making some fire starting stuff. I do have a ferro rod. I ordered one after seeing one of your videos. I was like, man, I gotta get me a ferro rod. So I got 2 of them now.
Yeah, they're very probably, I don't know if my camera will pick this up on there, but they're very simple little devices. I keep one in my pocket. My camera's probably not going to focus on that. But I was going to pull up my knife, but I don't like to do that on people's channels. But this has I'm going to shoot some sparks real quick. I don't know if anybody saw that, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're very easy to use. And when you first make your first fire without using like matches or a lighter, you feel like this like great sensation, like I've made fire.
Oh, I bet. I think those things are just so neat. You just strike them and instant sparks.
And that's what's good about I dig into some of this stuff because there's really small, tiny, cheap Walmart ferro rods that are, they're just not that great. You know what I mean? Like even the one in my bracelet here, this has a ferro rod right here, and a striker right here that you would use to start that fire. But it's so tiny, it's hard to even use. The main reason I have this is because of the paracord. But I've started a fire with it before, but it's just something that to think about before you purchase some of this stuff is to do some research. I always suggest folks to do any research before you buy any product.
Definitely do the research. And I'm like you, I like to read the reviews. I'm a big reviewer because that's straight from the mouth of people who are using it.
Agreed.
Now, I just want to do a time check really fast. So we have about 7 minutes left. I'm going to ask maybe 1 or 2 more questions here. And if I can get back to my question, do you have a favorite? Where was it at? Oh, what items do you always have in your pockets?
So one is my ferro rod. I always have a knife and a backup knife. I also have a multi-tool. I always carry some form of light in my pocket. Let's see what else I got in there. I carry, it's like a little thing of peanut butter for just a burst of energy. It's a little tiny container. They're a little jiffy kind of small things. I did this on a Dollar Tree challenge. And so I have that. My paracord around my wrist. It has a built-in compass as well. It also has a emergency whistle built into it in case you need to draw attention to yourself. What else do I have on me? I'm trying to think. I have a little bit of fire starting kindling. I always carry a what they call a cat tourniquet. What else? I have a couple little other EDC things. I wish I could give it a name because it's just like these little multi cards that you can use for certain stuff. What else? Because there's other times where I carry a little bit more stuff depending on where I'm going, but my daily stuff, that's kind of the gist of it, to be honest with you. Just some small stuff, you know what I mean? I have a little packet that that's sitting way over there in the other room. With I have some burn cream, like the little tiny things of burn cream, AAA antibiotic, and some band-aids and stuff like that, just in case you get a scratch or a bump or get bit by something or something like that, you know, just as a backup.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing what you have in your pockets. I think that's an interesting question because, you know, a prepper is going to have different things than probably most of the van life people here. And maybe, yeah.
There's a term, if you guys might be familiar with, it's called EDC, which stands for everyday carry, something you carry in your persons on a daily basis.
Okay. So, yeah, a lot of people probably have an EDC. They didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, it's a wallet, my car keys, and my cell phone. So those are, I mean, right now I'm not traveling or doing anything.
So I wish I had my keys on me. I would show you on my keys. I have a couple things on there too. I have it's a seatbelt cutter and a window punch on my keys, just in case there's a car accident and I need to get out quick.
I know exactly what that thing you're talking about. It might be a little bit different, but we did what was it? We were in Bardstown, Kentucky, and they were doing we were shooting a scene in a movie and at a fire station. They all gave us one. The firefighters there at Bardstown was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And let me see here. Let me just make sure that there was no questions here in the chat.
Barefoot InAK. He's like, that's quite the lineup, GreyMan. Yeah, it is, brother. But you get used to it. You know, you get used to carrying stuff. It's like, you know, like some people think keys, wallet, phone, you know, I go a little bit beyond that.
Now, Karen from Prairie Life was wondering if you had your seatbelt cutter nearby, or was that going to take too long to grab? She was wanting to see if you could show it.
No, I can go grab it. I'm just going to grab my keys real quick. Like I said, I was rushing to get in here, but give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Keep them entertained, Marshall.
If you have a question, welcome back. We're about to wrap this up. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask GreyMan Prepping, please drop them in the chat right now. I'd like to welcome Rob on the road. Thank you for being here. Camping Therapy, Doreen, thank you for being here. Call Me V, thank you for being here.
Let's see if I get my camera to focus on this thing here. Let's see. Let me turn on a different light here. Let's see if that will focus on that a little bit better. Come on, camera. Oh, let's reach past this.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like closed view kind of.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Sometimes if you do this, it'll focus. This is complicated. Let me see here. Maybe. There we go. Hold on. There it is.
There it is.
But so to kind of give you an idea, this pulls off the keychain. And then that's the device itself. And you can see the blade there. And then this piece here, this is where you push that against the window. I can't do it against my hand because it will hurt, but you push that against the window. But it's made for a quick release. It's made to come off quick because that's when you're going to need it. Mm-hmm. Now, in my vehicle, I have one on my keychain, but I have also a couple throughout the vehicle because if you have a rollover or something like that and you can't reach your keys or something like that, I have a couple options where they're around because they're very cheap. They're like $4 or $5.
That's awesome. And I have one of those, like I was saying. So thank you, Grey, for showing that and grabbing that for us. Real quick, we have about 2 minutes. So I just want to bring some attention down here to the video description for everyone in chat. Please do me a favor. And after this live stream or whenever you can, check out some of these links I have in the description. I've linked to GreyMan's channel, and you can also join his channel if you're interested in the prepping community. This is a great channel to join. He also has a new line of merch, which is really cool. He even did a video about it, and there's a chance to win your very own bug out bag. All those links are in the description. Grey, anything for me before I drop you down?
No, I mean it was a pleasure being on here. I like meeting folks like yourself, because I like getting the message out. And I want people to be more comfortable with prepping. And like how you said, prepping, bushcrafting, survivalism, all that stuff like that. Even like I said, the nomadic van life, and RVing, these things can all relate and can, help. And us putting the word out amongst each other and broadening our community, I think is a good thing. And that's why I like talking to all different types of folks. I talk on my channel. I bring on homesteaders. I bring gardeners and farmers, preppers, and all kinds of stuff because I want to expose myself to other realms of things as well. So, and I got big plans for the channel. So we'll see.
Well, I'm impressed so far with what you've done in such a short time. How long have you had your channel?
I came online on YouTube December 13th, so not long at all, but it's grown tremendously, surprisingly.
Well, you've done a great job. You must be doing something right. So thank you, Grey, for being here on this Nomadic Wednesday. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys.
Awesome. So if anyone out there in the chat or anyone watching the replay, thank you all for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button, share out this video. And I am going to end this live stream. We're going to end it together, Grey.
All right.
See you all